Hi, I'm Jerry White. My background is in the fascination of human physiology, how we work, but I'm also a physical therapist. I worked to establish a laboratory for the Shriners Hospital system called the Human Performance and Gait Analysis Lab. And in it, we were looking at how people adapt to the world who have messed up nervous systems, or their bony structure didn't come out right, or damaged. And also had an opportunity to be in athletics for a long time. Swimming was the predominant, and then went into triathlons, and then coaching triathletes, and looking at the biomechanics of the body's human motion, essentially in the fittest of the fit or the sickest of the sick. And what I've run across with this discovery of how we're really put together is fascinating. And so as we begin our discussion, I want to take a look at the communication systems that are just beginning to unfold in science, and how we've been able to bring some new ideas and some new technology to teaching your system essentially how it operated when you were young, how to kick back into that. The technology is based in a science called redox signaling. And if you think about the first fertilized egg that becomes a person, it has to split into 2 and then 4 and then 8 and continue to grow into 75 trillion cells that become the person. And as we begin to grow, one of the questions that we've had is that how does that set of cells with the same DNA as the original cell begin to start doing what we call differentiate? So one will be the beginning of the nervous system, and another will begin you split it in 2 sister cells. One comes out that beginning of the nervous system, the other one starts the cardiovascular system. How does it know to do that? Other questions we have are how does a precursor cell that sits in the bone marrow can become a red blood cell, a white blood cell, a bone marrow itself, or a platelet, even stem cells? How does the cell that's being made know how to read the DNA differently to become a heart cell from a brain cell? Once the stem cell's in the body and it begins to start to look for where to park, where's the damage, where do I need to replace something, how does it know that? Many different questions we were asking ourselves in this sense of biology. And if we can't really be in the right ballpark in our questions, we can't really find out how to fix things in the long run. All of this turns out to be a budding new science called redox signaling. And what is redox signaling? It's basically one small part of this huge new science is that if you think about in your own life experience, for many of us, we try to assess how functional our internal combustion engine is, your car. You're going to go in and get a new license, and you have to assess it so that they can tell if it's efficient or it's inefficient. And just by sampling the exhaust gases, they can tell how efficient your car is and then make recommendations on the fix. Wouldn't it be interesting if the body was sensing all of these activities to determine how it needs to adapt to a changing world, how it needs to turn on the genes that will begin the process to make a better cell? What we found was that as we get older, you can look around, you can see the creakiness that people get, the soreness that they get. We know that little babies or little kids under the age of 12 can play all day long and they don't get sore. Try following one of them. And after puberty, it's a whole different system. What makes these shifts? Why do we begin to slow down? Why can a little kid in 2 days close up a wound, and it takes maybe 12 days when you're in your 20s, and then by the time you're 60 and 70, you can't keep up. You can't replace those cells fast enough. All of this is being answered by the ability of the body to read and interpret what's going on around it. And it does it in part by sampling the gases or the exhaust that comes off of the energy production system in each cell. This isn't unique to people. It happens in plants. It happens in animals. And every cell has to produce energy. We think about food, for example. It's really, really, really important. One of the biggest industries in the history of the world is food. But there are things that can mess you up faster if you don't have them, like water or oxygen. So we go back and start, the science was sort of developed at looking at what the heck do you need that oxygen so badly for? Why do you die in 3 minutes? Well, the problem is that that system that burns the sugars and fats to make the energy is able to put off these exhausts, and when they're assessed, when they're balanced, when they're normalized, the body system can interpret the world around it and adapt and become a new cell of different type, or continue to produce a very functional cell. But if we start to lose some of those, what we call the energy factories, they're called mitochondria, and we lose them at about a rate of 10% per decade, and we start to lose the ability to understand the world around us, you kind of get one illness or breakdown in the system or damage, and when you're a little kid you can get over it real fast and you're ready to go for the next one to hit you. But when you get older, it takes longer to get over it, and then they start to overlap one on top of the other. We begin to break down. We have cells that last for so long they can't hold up and be strong anymore. So what we found is this ability to put the letters back in the alphabet that were being lost with aging. And when we do that, it appears that the cells can actually read more of the DNA when it goes time to make a new cell. And so we can begin to start to do things apparently much more like you did when you were younger. You went your whole life doing things very well, and then it starts to fade off. The skin begins to hang in bags, and it's now living too long before it makes new replacement cells. For little kids, they make a whole new set of skin in 14 days. By the time you're 28 or 20 years old, it's every 28 days. It's twice as slow. And then when we get into our 70s, 80s, it could be up to 90 days. It can't fight the battles. It can't get rid of the waste products. It can't get over the pain. It can't do the things that it used to do. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could add back the signaling characters that allow it to go back to what it used to do? It kind of makes logical sense. I think the future of medicine is going to be, in large measure, let this magnificent healing system, this one of the greatest creations in God's creation, is the self-healing part of who we are and what we do. Well, we've now found the first of the materials that begins to start to give us back those signaling characters. It's called ASEA. It's a company that's developed the ability to take some of these reactive molecules that were the exhaust, hold them in suspension and give them back to you. What that means is that you can begin to do what you used to do, adapt to the world faster, rebuild the system more robustly than it did before. Imagine like exercise, where if you start and you do it consistently over time, your body gets stronger, the cells get stronger, they can do more things. Imagine all the cells in your body are trying and they're slipping backwards. If you gave them that advantage to come up to where they can figure it out faster, watch what happens. So as you're exposed to this technology and the people that are working with it, try it. It'll astound you. Very simple ways you can see some quick results using some of this 3 times in 5 minutes. That's a quick response that says something just happened. But it clues you into, if you kept it on the system longer and longer and longer, you'd fight against a world that's really a lot more toxic than it used to be. So I look forward to you getting a hold of the ideas, being around the people, making a difference together. Watch what happens. Thanks for being with us on this first segment.